This is Peter. I'm here tonight in Warsaw in Poland, and tonight I'm asking the question, when is it okay to lie to your audience? And the answer really is all the time. Really, whenever possible, if you're, using a stool to kind of prop them up so that they're taller than they actually are, or, the old Hitchcock method, or if you're talking about lying about a location, maybe you're not where you say you are, and actually you're trying to use the buildings of one city to kind of fool the audience into thinking they're somewhere they're not. The reason why I ask why is it okay is because sometimes you want to reveal the truth of a city, the truth of where someone's from. For example, if you were to take La Haine, for example, which is shot in Paris, and actually dissect that film and say, well, what makes that film so truthful? And it's really kind of the fact that you're on the street with them and you're walking around with them, and you've actually got the truth of the first half of the film, which is like the suburbs and that kind of like a more lower class kind of area of Paris, and then on the other hand you've got then the second half of the film, which is kind of like the inner city, and you get to see a different side of Parisian culture, the side which the tourists are familiar with. My point about that is, just like Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, those kind of films, Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, you've got a different character perspective from a different film. So with Taxi Driver, he's not in Little Italy. This is one of Scorsese's films where he's not in Little Italy. He's in kind of like around Times Square and around the kind of taxi cab routes on Manhattan Island. So what we're seeing there is a truth of what that character would see, where he would go, what he would be experiencing. You're kind of following it with him. You are seeing the locations, and they're shooting in places deliberately where these kind of things would happen. You don't need to go all the way to New Jersey or Brooklyn, for example, to get these locations for Taxi Driver, because they are where they are, and there's a truth and authenticity, and more importantly, there's an atmosphere to where they are. There's a character to where they are, which adds such a level of depth to the film. So when I say, tonight that I'm in Warsaw, and who knows what I'm a wink with the wrong eye then what I could be saying really is, are you willing to believe what I'm saying, and are you willing to take in the atmosphere of this location and believe that it's Warsaw in Poland? If you're going to cheat, what I suggest is that you actually use a familiar looking location. I can't shoot this in my hometown in Birmingham or London and expect people to believe this. You can, maybe with the background, you can substitute that for London, but let's be honest, they're driving on the other side of the road, the buildings, the architecture looks a bit different, the trams look different. There is always something, even down to the trees a lot of the time will look different. So there's not a lot, and especially if you've got people speaking a different language going on in the background in your audio, you can't really fake that. So, there's a lot of things which the truth is important. Even the sound. So I've talked about in other videos about how there are particular sounds in different cities all across the country, all across the world. So to capture those sounds is something really artistic and something you shouldn't be cheating somewhere else. I know on a bigger budget they would do this, Vancouver's used a lot, I've seen in other videos. So does that mean that you need to necessarily shoot all in one place? Well, no, it doesn't. If it works to shoot all in one area and make that the kind of core concept of the film, like Fargo, like Mean Streets and Chungking Express or Naked, and have that kind of feeling to it, that it's all kind of one area, and this is, there is one block, let's say, and like in In the Heights, the musical, and you get that culture rising out of the musical or the film. That's something you really should hold on to if you've got that, and not kind of go out the area. But you're talking about a 2-hour film, and if you're the one that's writing this film, which is quite common nowadays, what you kind of, I think, is interesting is to then shoot in one area for maybe like the first half an hour, and then you evolve from that, and then you go on to, a different area of the city, and then by the end of the film, maybe you're in a more kind of corporate area of the city, or, and it says something, because you can really say something with that. If you're taking Stalker, for example, and you're starting off outside of the exclusion zone, and then slowly you're changing the locations, you're giving the audience some new kind of interest and keeping them hooked in a way. You don't have to do this. This isn't like, something that, yet another thing that you need to do to keep the audience's attention. That's not why you do it. The reason why you do it is to change the atmosphere, to help affect the audience in different ways, so that you're kind of leading them on a point, whatever that point is, and it can be many things. So I don't think that you have to shoot entirely in one place, and it can be interesting if you do that. If you're talking about like Mean Streets or Naked or After Hours, you really get that sense of Chunking Express, Fallen Angels. Quite a few of them do this, where you get used to an idea of that side of town, and then they show you a different side of town, and I don't think that you have to stay in one place for the entire film. It's interesting to then go to a different place, maybe 20 minutes in or half an hour in. Once you're used to one side, you can then use it as a technique to add atmosphere throughout your film, or change someone's way of thinking. Just like a character may evolve, they don't have to, and a location doesn't have to change, doesn't have to evolve throughout the film to keep the audience hooked. But it can be interesting to evolve the character that way, and then you're making a point about that, you're saying something different. How far do you want to take it, really? It's like, if you take Stalker by Andrei Tarkovsky, and you see how it kind of starts outside the exclusion zone, and then it comes in, and we're changing locations and even changing the color grade, the kind of film stock sometimes, and as we go through, we're changing the atmosphere, most importantly, and the character ideas that are going on in their head as they progress. So then once they get to once they get to where they're heading, and we felt we've been on a journey which has changed our minds, which has changed, but mostly just given us something new and interesting to see, so that we're not just being boring. It's like I talk about changing costumes sometimes throughout the film. So, if a character is wearing red at the beginning, and then, 20 minutes in, they start to maybe change. Maybe they don't change till the very end. It's really up to you how you structure these individual things. And if it isn't feeling quite natural that they progress and evolve, that the locations evolve, then don't do it just because it makes it more interesting. Do it because it works in a character way. It all comes back to character and where that goes and where you can go with it. What I don't recommend is that you let the process find out where that's going, because there's a way of doing that in rehearsal, sure, where you start to evolve the character. But if you're doing that, if you've shot a bunch of scenes, early in the year, and then you've only got the beginning of your film, and then you've got to do the rest of your film later in the year, that ain't gonna work. You're just gonna keep filming. Years and years are probably gonna pass. You maybe not even gonna be able to afford it. You're gonna keep going. You can tell that I've learned this the hard way. And you go on year by year, and you haven't really finished the film, and your ideas were only good, but you could have made loads of films in between then, let's be honest. So it's a good thing to remember, but also to let go as well. And isn't that what all of this is? You've got to carry that basket, but be willing to drop it at the same time and just start fresh, or just do something crazy like take the camera off and then go running with it. Isn't that the fun of what we're doing, and finding out cinematic language that way? Now, if you want to see a lot more of these videos, if you want to see my topics ranging from character to cinematic language to atmosphere to sound to score composition to anything from the philosophy of filmmaking, from just films that you maybe should be watching, I go through all these topics like really in depth quite a lot of the time, and what I'm trying to do is build this kind of like full curriculum of different topics which can be really explored and really kind of, as time goes on, just kind of mastered and dissecting each film one by one, including my own work, including the stuff that's going forward in my own journey. So if you guys are going on a similar kind of journey and you need someone to follow and to kind of work along with and to kind of be a kind of mentor figure for that, then I realise I'm just inviting myself to be your mentor, but this is what I'm planning to do. For that, I'm going to need some money. I'm going to need to be able to fund going out to places like this. I'm going to need to be able to fund making my films, and this is what I want to do for a full-time job. This is, honestly, I love doing this. So, if you want to give some money and actually get access to these videos, I went to Boston, I went to New York, I went to Philadelphia, I've been to Vienna, I've been to Prague, I went to all these fancy places. But the reason why I went to these fancy places is because for a start, I wanted to go on a holiday, but I also had to teach there. I had to show you guys absolutely that I am dead serious about this, not just as like a this is how you set up a camera, this is how you want to be using the triangle of exposure and all this, and whilst all of these technical things are important, and almost cinematic language to like a mid shot, medium shot, long shot is important, 3-act structure is important, right? But the fact is that a film can be open-ended, so what the fuck is a 3-act structure? The fact is you can do whatever the fuck you like, really. It's just how it's judged in retrospect. Was it good in retrospect? So, is it an artistic piece? And if you guys agree, why don't you join up? Why don't you actually, go down, press the link, and, find these videos, pay for them, and get access to them. And I'll really appreciate that, and I'll be able to make more of them, and I'll be able to, fund doing them maybe at a higher production value. Maybe I'll get like, some kind of shots of films going on in the corner at the time as well, and that'd be really cool to be able to dissect films as I'm talking about them, maybe. And we shall see where we end up. But the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I get a little bit of support, and you guys are going to get some great content because of it, because I will just not stop talking about film, and the stuff I have to talk about, the philosophy, the depth that I want to go to in this is like, I'm going into my own psychology, let alone, a filmmaker's kind of how far you can go with cinematic language and the philosophy of how you make a film. It's like, is there just one way to make a film, or is there multiple ways, or is that whole there's multiple ways thing a big lie? So click the link, get those bloody classes going, and you start now. We'll both build up our knowledge together. I encourage fucking comments which are gonna talk about this, which are gonna talk about how we can go a bit further with some of these ideas. I'm working it out the same way you are. I'm learning just as you are, just as smart as Scorsese is still learning now. I want him to be on this channel talking to him about what the fuck is film doing now. Where do we go from here now that the greats have come and gone, and now the new greats are here? And now we've got digital, and it's all a bit different, but it's still going to the roots of cinematic language and philosophy. It's like, what can we do with this? Where can we go?